Nate Warden, today is a day where you get completely grilled on all things AI and commerce. Welcome to the Orita Podcast, where we put you on the hot seat. Thanks for
Happy
coming.
to be here. Thanks for having me. Bring on the questions.
All right, let's do this. For those who don't know, I'm Aaron Schwartz, one of the founders of Orita. We build AI segmentation for a bunch of really cool brands, Spanx, Run Beauty, maybe Beck Archer, some of the coolest companies in the world, where I actually had the opportunity to meet Nate. But we're not going to talk about us today. We're going to talk about Nate's career, what he's working on today, like actually practical, like how you should be thinking about AI and commerce in particular. But Nate, let me get out of the way. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and you have a super cool background. Like you're at Nielsen, like you've obviously been in the space and like been into data for a long time. So walk us through kind of your proper background and then we'll go into what you're up to now.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Nielsen doesn't come up very often because that was one of my earliest jobs in my career. But yeah, I started out in in marketing ROI analytics and consulting. So I worked on marketing mix and MTA when that was the hot new thing after mix for a little bit. That was at the very beginning of my career. I learned a lot. I'm really working with like enterprises, so like Coca-Cola and Kraft, companies like that size. I really wanted to get into tech. So after that, I went to a company called Hudson MX, which is my first early stage startup, my first real SaaS company, my first job as a product manager. We were building media buying automation tools for the large holding companies, trying to modernize the way that they bought media across all their clients, across all media types. So I learned a lot about the way media is bought, a lot about like measurement and strategies and activation across all channels that way. After that, I went to Google. I worked on ads at YouTube for a while. Thought I would be there longer, but had some friends who were doing some cool stuff at OpenStore. So I ended up taking an opportunity there. I spent about 4 years when you combine OpenStore and Jack Archer in that space. Like that's what brought me into the e-commerce world. At OpenStore, the primary problem that I was working on as a product manager is how does OpenStore continue to acquire brands without having to add headcount in a linear fashion? Meaning, what software can we build to make it easier for the existing team of operators to run an unreasonably large number of brands? And so in doing that, I basically like went around the whole company and learned what every single person who was operating the brands did, the entire marketing team, the entire storefronts team, the supply chain, everyone. So if they were touching any part of the brand operations, I knew what they were doing, how to do it, what their problems were, what maybe we could build to help them work more efficiently across the portfolio, what tools they were using. And then OpenStore shut down last year. That business model didn't work for a variety of reasons, but Jack Archer was the breakout success of the portfolio. So brought in some new leadership and that brand got spun out to run on its own, which it's still doing today. I stuck around for a while to help get Jack Archer kind of like on its feet from a tech perspective. It had been basically like built into the walls at OpenStore. Everything was a custom build outside of Shopify and some of the Shopify apps that we used. So the data infrastructure, all the backend processing, even the catalog was all like entirely in-house. So I had to get that standing on its own and then started working on some AI stuff before in February, ultimately going out on my own. So these days I'm doing all contract work, a mixture of product management with some tech and data companies, but also working with brands. The big like unlock that happened in the last few months, like going into the beginning of this year, is everything that I tried to do at OpenStore that required a full development team to build applications. Much of that is now accessible with the Claude subscription. So it's like no longer a tech problem. It's really kind of a know-how problem / prioritization problem. So that's what I help brands work on.
I actually wanted to talk a little bit about you as a product leader, right? Because you have this like varied background, but obviously like that is kind of a through line. And even when you're seeing every part of the company, it's obviously still a piece of it. Um, the like prioritization and the like problem identification, is that still what you think the role of a product person is? And is that like where you can come in and provide leverage, or what's changed about being in product?
Yeah, I think most brands don't usually have product managers because they don't usually have full stack software development. And so it's not a head that you would normally have. But I think I was thinking of like leading up to this, knowing we were going to have this conversation today. One of the things I was thinking about is like AI tools have made it possible to turn retail companies into tech-like companies. And so like the skill set of a product manager or a really business-minded engineer is now like a desirable set of talent to have inside of any brand, because so much of what used to be human-based process building can become technology if you do it the right way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think whether it's like in a tech company, in a SaaS company, or in a brand, regardless of how you're using AI, whether you're using it to write a ton of code or you're using it to try and use like off the shelf AI tools for process automation, ultimately the core the core skill set of a good product manager is prioritizing and strategizing like where to use tech and how to
Mm.
build that into a roadmap that adds up to a business plan that makes sense.
We'll go into this obviously in a couple minutes when we go more into traction and kind of what you're building there. Are there like high level frameworks for the things you think like, hey, actually you should be paying a third party for versus the things that you should be building in house? Like what is the like general rubric that you would have?
Yeah, I am very much not on the AI has killed all SaaS bandwagon or will kill all SaaS. It definitely changes the ecosystem for SaaS companies and like how they should go to market and how they think about their own business strategies. But whether you're a tech company or a retail brand, you don't need to build all of your tech from scratch. Like there's just no reason to do that. It's a lot of overhead, it's a lot of complexity. As soon as you decide to own something entirely in-house, like maybe you have freed yourself of the burden of paying a SaaS fee, but you have signed yourself up for the burden of having to maintain the talent and the headcount that operates that software. So it's a big trade-off. Like, so I think the couple things that I would look at in making that decision is how complex is it? It's like Orita
Right.
is a great example of something that no one's just going to like vibe code over the weekend. I think you guys have a great tool and it's something that I would recommend any brand to pay for. It's too complicated and you have a great product. So like that's something that I would always recommend buying. If you're paying a couple $1,000s a month for like data analytics and reporting tool, you probably don't need to do that anymore because like data analysis and reporting is a core business function that everyone at the company does on a weekly basis. And Claude is pretty low cost on a per headcount basis and does that exceptionally well. So I think there are definitely examples of places where like brands can cut costs on that. But then there are other places where you should just pay for the best in class tools as long as
Mm.
the price is right.
It's been interesting for us on the product side for the last like month or two. We've seen a lot of competitors pop up that say they do what they do. And it's basically like, it's not a vibe coded. I don't want to like, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but um, we don't believe that you can go use Claude to build out your email marketing strategy because what you're doing is you're getting all the blog posts that have happened over time, but you're not actually getting all the diversified strategies that have happened over time. And so actually like how people email and what customers engage with is a proprietary bit of data that every company has, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so like we are actually shrinking our scope a lot to focus on the things where it's like, actually, this has to be a unique data set. It has to be a craft product.
Yep.
And we're officially at the point where we're going to start giving away other stuff for free, kind of probably as a lead magnet, but just be
Yeah.
like, hey, people are paying for this. Nate, a while ago, I ran a brand for a decade. And so like, we're very much like, how do we go help founders and how do we go help like operators? And so it's like, you should not be paying for that. We're more technical. Let us go like build this for you. Like, just go do that thing. And so that
Yeah.
it's been an interesting shift and like candidly an energizing one just to be like, we're not empire building. We're going to solve one problem that we think is unique. Anyway, thank you. This is my therapy session, but
That's good. I think you guys are doing great.
thank you. That's very kind. All right, cool. End of podcast. We got what we wanted. It was like, we're not talking about Arita here, so of course you got there. All right. I do, and before again, we'll go more in the weeds, but I want to think about like the conditions for a company to be successful building with AI. Is it hey, we need this to be the CEO? Is it everybody in the company needs to be bought in? Are there like, what are the attributes or what are the things when you're coming in to consult with a business or that you even saw at Jack Archer where you guys started accelerating that like, these are the conditions that are needed for success for the next generation of brands or for the next step function for existing brands?
Yeah, I think it has to come from the top, and there are a couple of reasons for that. I think executives of the company set the bar for what good work looks like. They set the bar for the company's imagination, if you will. Like they allow the company to dream big. They set the goals. And if you, as an executive, fundamentally don't understand what's possible now, how are you going to do that? The other thing is just in terms of talent attraction and retention, if you're as a leadership team not up to date with what AI is good at and how to use it, I don't understand how you're going to attract talent who also
Mm,
does or retain talent who also does.
sure.
So I think it's a top down thing for sure. Now, in terms of using it, can be bottom up, top down, side to side. Like the people who actually use the AI tools every day and come up with new ways of
Yeah.
automating existing painful processes or turning on net new skills, whether it's a new marketing channel or a new sales channel or just like making one you already have better. That happens at all levels, but I just don't see that happening in an organization where the leadership isn't in front.
One of the things, and it's funny because I love looking at people's LinkedIn. It's my favorite social network, right? But I actually pulled it up. It's like traction. We help brands move from figuring out AI to actually running it with custom implementations. And we'll go a little bit in depth there. But how often do you come into companies right now? And again, whether you're consulting or so many people in this ecosystem where they actually need like a fundamental strategic reset versus like, oh, we're just coming in and we're taking things that are working and we're AIifying it for the sake of like efficiency or effectiveness.
I think it's easy to go on LinkedIn and find like one or two posts that get some traction where someone is making bold claims about how they're using AI at their company, and I believe them because
By the way, you can click this link and download everything that I'm sharing.
yeah, yeah, comment AI to get my free guide.
I did that this morning just to go look at it and I was like, oh, this is such slop. It was so bad.
Claude wrote that guide and probably a bot DM'd it to you. No, but there are really impressive cases out there. Like I saw a CTO of a brand this morning post about how they had built out like, I don't know, like a couple hundred automations using Innate and 8, and like I believe that they're doing that and it works. But like in that post, the person specifically said like, honestly, this work is being done by really a couple people in the company who are really good at this, and we're kind of trying to educate everyone else. And that I think is across the board. So like every time I see a success case on LinkedIn, in the back of my head, I say, that's great. Like that's a cool use case. There are 9 other companies that haven't even figured out how to integrate ChatGPT with their email.
All right. I want to use the last half hour that we have, and I'm pretty excited about this to get a lot of free advice for really good operators. So first and foremost, you started this business. Tell me what traction is, who it's actually useful for. And then we're not going to do this as a sales pitch, obviously, but it's like, great. How do you think about the world? Where should people be? What are the like primary places to look? Where's the low hanging fruit? Yada, yada.
Yeah.
So yeah, first and foremost, where'd it come from?
Traction is really just like a legal entity for me to work with brands at the moment. Like it's really just me as a contractor doing consulting. I pride myself on being able to operate at the C-suite and the board level, but then also go be hands on keys. And that comes from my experience, especially at OpenStore, working directly with everyone in the company on whatever it is they did, but also having a senior level understanding of cost structures, P&L, org structures, whatever a brand is trying to work towards. Are they trying to get profitable? Are they trying to attract net new investment? Are they looking to sell? Those are all really important considerations for what is the right set of solutions for a brand at any given time. Are they using agencies? Are they primarily in-house? All that stuff. So I have a couple diagrams I can show if you want. We can start with one
I
about
love
like
it.
how I think about like
I love it.
mapping.
I also think like this is going to sound dumb, but everything we're going to say depends. Even the initial framework that you just laid out is like, do you have the resources in house or an agency? Are you trying to sell the business, grow the business, improve, like launch a subscription product? Like
Yeah.
everything has to be in service of where the business is going. So yeah, let's do it. Pull up the diagram, please.
Yeah, sure. I have a couple I made.
I started my career at Deloitte Consulting, and there was something called the Enterprise Value Map that I definitely have somewhere in this house. And it was like a pamphlet that if you unfolded it, it was, like as big as a wall type of thing. And it was like, here's every single way that you can go create value as a company. And it was awesome. It was like the revenue side, the cost side.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting this to be at least that big. All right, let's jump in.
Yeah. This is not like exploration of the P&L, but I think that is also a good way of thinking about it is like, as you're deciding where to deploy AI, like you have to, this is why leadership has to be leaned in because you have to know where it's actually useful and then tie that to like your enterprise map. Like where do we want to cut costs? Where are we trying to grow some number by XYZ%? Like you have to know those things and then pick the tools that work to do those. And if you don't understand how AI works, how are you going to do that? Okay, so this was just how I just like generally think of like in the broadest terms, it really applied to any business, but it boiled down whatever your business function, you're going to have observations or questions. That's just like your day-to-day job. You're observing the business, you have goals, you have strategies, you're going to have stuff, observations and questions related to that. At this point, all of the models that you're going to access, like any LLM, like the current models are exceptionally good at analysis. They're better than most humans. And they're certainly faster than any human. And like the amount of data that they can process and the speed that they can do it, like, yes, maybe some humans could spend a day or two or a week on those and get to the same conclusions. But like, I don't know. I think the analytical intelligence here is solved, basically, if you're using the latest models. So like that part of a business process, it's like where you should be leaning in to use AI. We can talk more about like how do you actually do that. The next part of your business process is using that analysis to plan and decide. Humans go here. That's like, this is what, like when you hear people say like what's left after AI and like it's taste, this is the same thing. It's like I use Claude every day. I use it for all sorts of things, like for e-commerce purposes or for like product management, tech purposes. It does all sorts of interesting analysis that I have directed it to do. But at the end of the day, sometimes I disagree with it. And like, that's why I'm doing it instead of Claude. You know, that's where expertise comes in. And then at the end of this process is action. So I think where some people look at AI and then like feel like, oh, like this is all overblown. The reality is that AI's ability to take action at the moment is pretty limited, I would say, but it's growing. So like the internet blew up when OpenClaw happened because suddenly like AI had hands on the internet, you know, that's what that is. I would say for e-commerce purposes, like ability for AI to actually do this final step, it's like do stuff, pretty limited. Like for content purposes, I could show you some good examples, but I could show you lots of bad ones. For copywriting, again, like some good, lots of bad. There's no real world stuff that it can do, you know, like it's very limited in action. However, this is where all the investment is going. This is where all of like the product roadmaps of all the frontier models are going. This is even SaaS companies are building so that they can be used by agents instead of being used by humans. Not across the board, but like as an increasing trend. So this last bucket is increasingly going to be addressable in the coming years, which means that right now everyone should be spending their time on the far end of the diagram, making sure that they're learning how to use AI to get their data, do good analysis, produce good insights, exercise human taste, and then like the future proofing your business is being ready to start letting AI tackle more and more of the actions.
Nate, let me ask a little bit about this because this is relevant for any company in the world, but we're obviously focused on brands or retailers like more narrowly, at least in this discussion. Where do you see this actually impacting, again, Jack Archer or the companies that you've seen are just like best in class businesses in terms of like their merchandising or their customer understanding? Or is it like the left side is actually really good right now to your point? Hey, look, here's our analytics and we can show you what the dashboard is, but we can't really tell you how to move. Like, we don't know how to be the first mover that like moves the numbers in the dashboard. I don't know. How do you think about like that, like the actual core brand side and the core merchandising, core product side of the house, like physical?
Usually those decisions are like tied to some business goals. So like new products to get launched because it's hard to market the same products forever. Your contribution margin
Sure.
dies. Like new products get launched as a way of staying fresh, whether that's in the apparel industry or others. You get to reactivate your existing customers through CRM, which is like prints money and it fuels your growth engine. It's kind of like how brands stay above water. And so like using AI there's a bunch of things that go into launching a new product. Choosing them, find like either using your existing suppliers or finding new ones, and you have to actually develop the product. There's tons of questions and insights, customer feedback, competitive strategy that goes into that. Depending on what the product category is, like bringing it to life can involve a lot of like testing and fitting. And then there's content too. So like product photography, marketing collateral, like AI can do a lot of those things or be heavily involved in all of them. That's just one example. That's like product development. Did you want to talk about something else?
No, I think it's interesting. I mean, like, would you be using AI to like parse customer feedback and return tickets and all that? Okay. like to
Yeah,
go figure
for
out
sure.
what are the issues that you actually need to fix.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can I've got two more like visual examples. We can move on to the next if you want. One is like how I would think about build. There's like this new trending job title of like growth engineer. I had this diagram built before that term exists because I think it's just obvious that there's role compression that is possible through good use of AI, which means you can either take if you want to keep if you love your team and you want to keep all of your existing headcount, you can expand what they're able to do. Like you could launch new marketing channels, new sales channels with your existing heads. If that doesn't work for you, for your business for some reason, there is opportunity to compress and have fewer roles. And so like that's the other direction. Let me switch over to this tab. So this one's got more stuff on it, so it's a little harder to see. Let me change it.
Okay.
Okay. So this I think of as basically like how what used to be like creative strategy, media buying, content ops, and design can all now be done in one or two roles, depending
Mm.
on how your talent looks. On the left side, you have data coming in, your ads performance data, as well as your ad creative. And you can feed that into tools like Claude for analysis. To your prior question, you can start to get fancy and pull in a lot of other data. You can pull in conversion page, conversion rates by landing page across your entire product catalog, CRM performance. You can look at campaigns and flows, your customer reviews, customer support tickets, competitive brand insights, and social commentary. Like all of that can be fed in and analyzed by the current frontier models with no problem in a small amount of time. And this is where I say, like, yeah, like a human could read through all of these and like could synthesize these before LLMs were useful the way they are now. Like this is the kind of stuff that I and other operators at OpenStore used to do all the time. Like I would carve out an entire day to go through some of this data. But now you can like run this as an automated AI task every Monday morning if you want to. And then from there, you produce insights. So those insights can be turned into creative briefs or campaign strategies that are going to get fed into your creative ops process. That can be as simple as like AI writing tickets into Asana, or more complex if you need to like generate extremely detailed briefs for different vendors. This is where I think the loop can split. So on the top part of the loop there, I think that's like I don't think that all content for all brands should be AI everything all the time. I think a lot of consumers are allergic to it for a variety of good reasons. However, I don't think brands should shy away from it entirely. I think there are a lot of use cases where creative has an extremely short shelf life and maybe is like really small format on a screen, and someone's going to look at it for 2 seconds and never see it again. And if there are a lot of good image generation models that like look fantastic and like probably work for that use case that allow brands to increase their creative output and cut costs dramatically. So I think of like your content stack, a lot of it's still going to be designed by humans or studio photography or UGC you briefed from
Mm.
creators you work with. But I think increasingly brands should be thinking about the sliver of where they're comfortable using AI, because over time, the split between those will shift. And
It
then at
feels
the end
like
of the day, go ahead.
finish your thought and then I'll jump in. Yeah.
Well, the end of this loop is that you put the ads on into the platform and it starts all over again next week.
And then you make the monies. Um, one of the things that I just want to parse out is it's still like if it's an enabler, it's one thing, but it's not like, cool, what is my creative strategy for the next month? Let me just trust. But if it is complementary to help the CMO or her team or whoever it is figure out what the next campaign or program or whatever language you want to use is, it's all about like getting more with less, right?
Yeah,
And
and
like,
I mean, if you go back, you think about like the prior graph of like analysis to like the
yeah,
human sits in the middle, right? Is the
yeah,
tastemaker.
yeah,
People who work in these brands know their customers. They know what people like about their products. They know what people
yes,
don't like about their products. They know what they say about the competition,
yeah,
right? Like this isn't like fully automated. Someone is sitting right in here in the middle, reading all of the outputs, debating with Claude. That's, I do that every day.
yeah,
And again, like Claude will present a bunch of analyses and I might find 80% of it to be like spot on. And then one part of it, 20%, is just like wrong. And I'll tell it, I disagree with you. Here's why. Go do another loop of analysis. Okay,
yeah.
great. Now write up my tickets for me.
I mean, part of what you even have listed here is the UGC side, and like implied in
Mhm.
that is like you have fans and you've earned their trust and they like the product, so they share.
Yeah,
Clearly a
exactly.
big piece.
But building a system like this allows you to have like parts where like the data is pulled together, AI analyzes it. This means like in practice, if you're doing all of this in-house, this can consolidate headcount or allow your existing team to service more marketing channels than they would have been able to before.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. What?
If you're thinking about the content like split, like you can start to carve away your content costs, or you can service more marketing channels or more creative without increasing your content expenses.
Yeah.
And it also reduces like time spent going from question to answer to insight. Because if you were running this full loop with an entire team of people, probably you have someone doing like all of the analysis and the creative strategy, and you just create natural bottlenecks, right? The reality is like if you're investing in building this as an AI based process, this entire loop can happen on Monday by like 2 p.m.,
Yeah.
instead of happening once a week or once a month.
I think the thing that's hard to remember is we're like talking about this and we're like, what's going to happen to the human side is like brands go out of business all the time because it is extraordinarily difficult to run a brand. It tends to be, not always, right? Like tighter margins. And then, oh, by the way, there's tariffs that pop up, or you have a
Yeah,
supply chain.
exactly. Acquisition costs are through the roof, and now
Acquisition
everyone's paying
costs
tariffs.
go from X to 3X overnight. And you're like, okay, that was what I relied on. And so what I'm not hearing from you is like, cool, how do we go like eke out the next dollar? But it is about, you keep framing this as you could do, like, you could in spirit shrink your team, but the way you're framing it to me is much more like you're a good business already. You might have a team. How do you go help that team get more out of like what they have right now? So it's like efficiency and effectiveness. Like one isn't right. And do you know what I mean? It's more like how do we go set up a brand to be very successful?
I think that really comes down to like the context of the
Yeah.
organization. If there are investors asking for headcount reduction, then that's a boardroom problem that someone has to fight.
Yeah.
If the company is up and to the right and they want to keep growing and they want to figure out how to make sure they're using AI so they can continue that
Yeah.
healthy growth, then yeah, like you said, I think efficiency and effectiveness are the right terms. Like in my own experience using AI for the things that I do, AI makes me more efficient in that it takes the things I used to do and makes me faster at them. That's
Mm.
what I think is efficiency. Effectiveness, I'm changing the definition. It gives me skills I didn't have before. So like
Mm.
my tool belt is bigger or my scope is bigger. And I think that makes me more effective.
Mm.
And I think it does both. So like it gives you more velocity in the same direction, but it also allows you to cover additional scope.
If you were to restart OpenStore today, and this is not about OpenStore, so we called a completely different name. Do you actually think the premise? So I think you and I actually met when I was at Loop Returns, and we started
Yeah.
working with you guys. This is like 2021, maybe. I mean, it was a while ago, right?
At the beginning. Yeah, that's probably when I
Yeah.
started with
It was
OpenStore.
very cool. And you guys had such an incredible team, and like it was a vision I was completely bought in on. And at the end of the day, you were relying on third party technologies and a lot of stuff. Do you think at this point, and maybe not today, but within 6 months or 12 months, that vision actually works again? Because you can be much leaner and you don't have as robust of a tech stack as many vendors and you can do more internally.
Yeah, I mean, AI fixes a lot of the challenges that we had at OpenStore. It doesn't fix all of them. Like there are some underlying business model issues. I think if you were going to start something like OpenStore again from scratch today, I would start new brands from scratch because the ability to use AI to figure out exactly where are the opportunities in the market for any given
Mm.
category, a little bit like what Quince does, I guess, but not, it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be under one brand
Mm.
roof. It could be an entire portfolio of brands,
Mm.
the way that OpenStore was. Um, and if you were going to do it from scratch, like picking the right product categories, finding suppliers, spinning up your brand, like all of the creative, a lot of the creative assets, all the development, building in-house applications, a lot of these things, like the level of effort is now 10x lower. So yeah,
Yeah.
you could do that. There are challenges with buying businesses and then having to deal with trying to grow them while also paying back the debt. So I probably would start businesses from scratch and run them as a portfolio. The other
Mm.
challenge that OpenStore had is like we wanted to do cross selling across brands, but we didn't have brands that paired well together. So if you were smart, you'd start a bunch of brands from scratch and make sure that they theoretically paired together,
Or they talk to the same demo. You don't
or
have
they
like some brands that are awesome for like
talk to the same
older
character.
men and some that are great for like kids. And yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I think that you would still use a lot of off the shelf third party SaaS, but that like core problem of how do I have a lean team to operate many brands? AI absolutely helps with that in a
Mm,
lot of meaningful ways.
okay, that's helpful. I know you mentioned you had one more diagram. Do you want to pull it up and walk through anything
Yeah,
else?
yeah,
But
sure. The other
I love that you
one,
came prepared, Nate. I thought we were just going to wing it and it was just going to be buddies talking, but no, this is great.
I love a visual, helps people uh get it, I get a lot of visualize.
I'm
This one
definitely
is
going to start.
more
Yeah,
generalized.
I'm going to start sharing stuff on more of my calls. This is going to be good. Make it up.
I use FigJam all the time in a lot of contexts because I just
Okay.
like it's very easy to spin up a diagram.
Yeah.
So for back of house stuff, so like the other one is like we looked at growth marketing. How do you like build a growth engine? But mostly focused on creative and paid media, but you could tack on some extra stuff. This is just more like back house. So like across accounting, finance, operations, supply chain, there's pretty much a shared kind of like business pain point, which is that you're pulling data from lots of different systems to analyze or to do your business as usual reporting. And the way that brands have tackled that in the past is either by throwing bodies at it or paying for expensive SaaS, and sometimes a combination of both. So like it can end up being really expensive or really slow. Basically, like those are your trade-offs if you want to like all of these questions, whether it's your end of month reconciliation or your demand planning and your cash planning. There's lots of examples in the back of house. Now, tools like Claude have made it very easy to pull all of that data together at trivial costs, analyze it, build interactive dashboards that can be shared and updated automatically within the company. You can even go a step farther and start to build agents. I'm going to call them agents, but like really just bots that you can chat with about your data. They're not I think agents gets used to mean a million different things, and it's not a useful buzzword anymore. It means too many different things to different people. But you can plug an LLM in to talk to your data, even if it doesn't do anything else. So I think like that is a huge shift in the speed and cost that companies can operate with. This is another one where I think AI is like very genuinely useful if applied correctly. I
Okay.
also
Question.
view this as like foundational to all of it. Remember, like the very first diagram was like analysis now, action maybe later. This is like focused on the analysis now as kind of the bedrock of doing cooler things in the future.
Do you find yourself asking different questions than you used to or doing different analyses? Right. Because you've kind of like have this expansive ability to do stuff. Or is it more like I'm just doing what I used to do way more efficiently?
I don't think it has changed. I don't really. Yeah. It's just like you're doing it way more efficiently. Or you can tackle things that the other, like, one of my biggest pieces of advice to anyone who's trying to figure out how to use AI is use AI to learn to use AI. Like Claude has taught me to do so many things. Like that's the effectiveness part, you know? I have skills that used to like the thought exercise is like, yeah, I could learn to do that, but it's going to take me what's the ROI on learning to do that? Probably pretty bad for most like that's why people tend to specialize in their careers because you end up getting rewarded for being a specialist. I think that's wrong now mostly because like expertise is less valuable. Broad ability using AI has become very
I made a joke a month ago that I've been kind of like a CEO who 30 years ago would be like, please print out all my emails and I will
powerful.
dictate back an answer and we will fax it. And just like the speed with which we can grow and learn is just unbelievable. I appreciate that you're like fully dedicating this part of your like career to this and also helping other brands.
That's one of the like one of the reasons I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge opportunity. Like I think it's everyone, whether you want to be or not, is at an inflection point in your career. Like how you decide to handle this is really important. It's incredibly fun for me, basically, to like I don't know. You'll see on LinkedIn, like people say, which is true, it's really hard to keep up with all this AI stuff unless you're dedicating a lot of time to it.
Mm.
In some ways, I've made it my job to do that, and I like it for now.
I also think like there's a difference, and again, going back forever ago when I was a consultant, is like there's a difference between like, hey, I did this analysis, here's what you guys need to do, go do it, versus hey, I did this analysis, here's what you need to do. By the way, here's how you can get better at the thing, and like you don't need me again. Like I'm educating you. It's like teaching how to fish type of thing. And I think
Yeah.
there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I like doing.
Maybe just two more quick ones, if you don't mind. We talked a little bit about the analysis side, and that is the low hanging fruit. A lot of people don't have an analytical background, but now they are supercharged to be able to do that. Cool. Are there other things that you're seeing like good brands should be focused on first? If they're like, where should I start this journey? Like, are there other problems that they, again, your mileage may vary, but like problems that they should be thinking about more immediately?
Whatever your normal business problems are, like this is the thing. AI is not good at everything, but it's good at a lot of stuff. So like I was talking to the CEO of a brand recently. They were looking to bring someone in full time to be their head of AI. And we were talking about whether or not he'd be interested in hiring me as a consultant instead. And he asked me literally, like, where do we start? And I said, okay, well, what are your biggest business like, what do you worry about as the
Mm,
CEO of the business? And he was like, well, we're a subscriptions company. So like LTV is like the number one thing I think about basically. And I was like, cool. Like, where are you on customer support automation? He was like, we're using blah, blah, blah tool. And I was like, cool. Well, you're probably at around 20% ticket automation. I bet we could get you to 70% ticket automation. $1 per ticket is the ballpark of what's good at this point. And what you could do instead of like cutting costs on customer support is repurpose all of your existing staff who work on that and focus on upsells and retention, and your LTV will go up.
like it.
So like whatever, I'm not saying that AI fixes everything. Like I
Oh,
think
yeah,
I've been
no,
upfront that there are places where I wouldn't use it. But like whatever your biggest business problem is, it doesn't like it's still the same problem that you would solve for AI.
I'm,
Like I'm not,
I'm
you know
with
what I
you.
mean?
I think the hardest problem right now is figuring out what is the job to be done and what is the priority in which to do them. And you kind of
Yeah.
mentioned this to open up the discussion. All right, last quick one. How are you helping brands think about their customers' journey at this point and like where customers are discovering you or how they're actually going through the purchase funnel? Is there anything there that's like fundamentally changed, or is it same as what we just talked about, which is like, well, this is important and here's how to use the tools?
It hasn't changed that much. Like everyone wants to make sure they're doing stuff so they can win agentic search, like AEO. If you're a Shopify brand and you're already doing normal SEO, like, and your catalog is in good order, it's a PR problem. It's not an AI problem.
Got it.
Like Shopify is actively building and rolling out all of the backend integrations with all
Yeah.
of the agentic platforms. I think they have ChatGPT and Copilot Live,
Mhm.
maybe Perplexity. Claude's probably at the bottom of the list. People use Claude for work, not for
Yeah.
shopping. So you get it for free just by being on Shopify. It really is a PR problem after that. So the answer is no, basically. I don't think
I
consumers
love
are
it.
shopping in a significantly different way. I think your internal operations can allow you to be in more marketing or sales touch points.
I love it. That's great. Thank you. All right. So last thing. Any takeaways or anything that you wanted to share that you didn't, or like insights that you just want to double click on? And then most importantly, where can folks find you? How should they reach out?
I don't think I have anything else. People can find me on LinkedIn, Nate Warden. You can go to traction.company. That's our website. And you can email me there if you want. I'm happy to do like free introductory conversations. I love chatting with brands just to see what they're thinking about. No charge at all. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch.
Nate, thank you. This was a pleasure. I appreciate all the insights. And as always, it's such a delight to chat with you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Run Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.